All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. We are here at One Gen Gym in Claremont, California. Next to me is Ryan Bentson, Team Zero Gravity and co-owner of One Gen Gym. We have a very special guest here today, the legendary Terry Crews.
What's up, Ryan and Larry? What's up, man?
Hell yeah.
See you guys.
Absolutely.
We just had the greatest workout ever. This is all good. That's why you see the pump right here. The pump is still happening.
Can't do a pod without a pump. All right. So when I first saw Terry, it was in White Chicks. Now it's a classic. And you went on to do many amazing things, right? You've been an absolutely amazing entertainer and role model. So I want to dive into your origin story. You know, what happened before White Chicks?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't mind starting. Basically, you know, I'm 56 years old, and I was born in Flint, Michigan in 1968. And, you know, Flint, Michigan at the time was a very, very prosperous city. I would pretty much relate it to Palo Alto. General Motors was the main corporation in the city. It was making cars. They had Buicks and the whole thing. And General Motors was literally the most successful company in the world at that time. But then from 1968 all the way through the 70s and early 80s, the auto industry started to decline. And I was literally kind of caught in that whole thing. And, you know, what's another thing that's crazy is just to watch your city go from here, this beautiful, beautiful place, into a shell of what it used to be was very traumatic for me. Again, now on top of the city going through it, I had a very, very abusive father. And one of my earliest memories is my father knocking my mother out in front of us. I mean, I was probably around 5 years old. I remember coming out of my room and watching them argue, and he reeled back and he hit my mother dead in her face. She falls out, she's knocked out. And he's standing over her talking about, look what you made me do. And that also was a very traumatic experience in that I realized, I was like, hey man, it's your world. You say you love this woman, and this is what you did. So what you gonna do to me? You know? And I knew from a very, very early age that I may have to kill him. I mean, I knew. And this is one reason why I always wanted to be strong, because I wanted to protect my mother. I wanted to protect my family. I had one older brother and a younger sister who's 6 years younger than me. So she kind of was born into this kind of violence. So it was very, very violent. And when people left the auto industry, they went straight into the drug game. So the crack game was happening at the same time. You're talking early 80s. All the way through the 80s, early 90s, crack was king. And it was a very, very violent place, man. A lot of my friends didn't make it out. A lot of friends went to jail. A lot of people died. I had a lot of family members that got on drugs, turned into zombies right before my eyes. We had to lock up any valuables because it was a thing where, listen, I had a relative that stole my grandmother's riding lawnmower in the middle of wintertime, drove it right out from the driveway into the street. The tracks went into the snow. And you realize, man, there's nothing safe. I learned all kind of lessons back then. But the flip side is I was also an artist. Painting, drawing was my big thing. I'm left-handed, right-brained, and art helped me process a lot of this stuff. My mother was very religious. She wouldn't allow us to do a lot of things, which kind of saved us in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Because I was never allowed to be in the streets. It was a real strict lifestyle. But if I was in those streets, it would have been it wouldn't have turned out nice.
You know, on that note, what you just said right there is very powerful, because when I was a teenager, I spent a lot of time in the Bronx, East 193rd Street. It's been a few years there. Those were not good streets. You know, there were drug dealers in my lobby and my 5-story walk up that I'd have to walk past every day, piss on the stairs, you know, blunt guts everywhere, and had kids knocking on my door for credit card scams. So toxic environment. But I didn't spend time on the streets. I put myself in another environment, which was the gym. I would spend 8 hours a day just hanging around the gym. 'Cause I don't want to be in the street. I don't want to be at home. Like, because for me, I thought there was nothing positive for me there. You know, so what you said about like your mother protecting you from the streets, not letting you be on the streets, because it probably saved your life.
Yeah, I believe that. I truly believe it. At the time, you'd be like, man, this is horrible. You know, man, why don't I get to go this? Why don't I get to go? But I also looked like I was preserved. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, felt like Jurassic Park. They found that one thing preserved in ice. You know what I mean? Like, I'm that guy, you know. When everything else, the whole world is going under, I got preserved by that. It's a great way for me to reframe what that was for me. And, you know, also her being so religious, you know, I wasn't allowed to go to the movies. I wasn't allowed to dance. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. Everything I do today, I was not allowed to do as a kid. But what I would do is, instead of going to the movies, I would draw what I thought the movies were. So the kids were talking about Jaws and the whole thing, and I would draw what I thought the movie was. And it really, really helped my imagination, you know. And I got really, really good. Art became a thing where it you know, even when I wasn't good at other subjects like math or you know, science or whatever, my art talent was one of those things where everybody was like, whoa, this guy can draw whatever he sees. Like, this is crazy, you know? But being an athlete, and this is another thing, I because I was getting strong, because I felt like I wanted to protect my family, I also knew athletics was going to be a great way to make it out of Flint, you know? Football, you got to understand, tons of athletes, Glenn Rice from the Lakers and Carl Banks from the Giants, born and raised Flint, Michigan. And we followed these cats, and we were like, this is a way out. And I knew no one was going to give me money to paint, but I knew they would give me money to play football. So I had a desire to join the football team, and eventually my mother got out of, like, around my late teens, she got out of the religious mode, so she let me join the football team. But I never gave up my art at the same time. It was weird because I go to art class, they want to make me, you know, they say, hey man, you got to give up that football stuff, you're going to break your hand. Or I would go to football practice and they would say, hey man, that art stuff, you know, it's going to hurt, you know, it's somehow going to hurt your game. And I said, I don't have to give up any of it. I'm not going to do that. And so what was crazy, I did not get a football scholarship to go to college. I got an art scholarship. It was small, but it didn't pay for everything. And then I walked on to the football team at my college. I went to Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I begged, now you got to understand, we had no money. And I begged my mother. I said, please, if you ever, and I begged my whole family. Like, they had to sacrifice for me. I said, if you make this sacrifice so I can go to college, it's going to be worth it. I went, walked on, got that little small art scholarship, went, walked on. They paid for everything. My parents, they couldn't afford it. And I didn't get the scholarship. I went a whole year, and they were like, man, I had to come home. But what I did the first year I came home, I got a job at WJRT TV 12 in Flint, Michigan, this is back before computers. I would draw the backdrops for the news. So if it was a murder in the city or whatever, I would draw a chalk line, I would draw the police cars and the whole thing, and they would put it on the news. And then I got the opportunity to do courtroom sketches for the news. Because the guy said the artist was supposed to come in from Chicago. He didn't come. Terry, can you do it? I said, yes. And I learned at an early age, just start saying yes. And there I was doing courtroom sketches. My first job in entertainment was doing courtroom sketches. And I did such a good job that they loved it. But I always knew the confidence was there for my art ability, you know? So I went back to school. After begging my mother one more time, I said, listen, if you give me just a semester, And let me tell you, my whole family was rolling their eyes. It was one of the hardest things, and I'll be honest with you, it was really selfish. I told everybody bet on me because I knew I was going to give everything. Like, there was no going back. I knew I was like a missile. And I said, I will never, ever stop until I get this. And so I told everybody, make your bet on me, please. I went and I got my scholarship after going back. And that's when I learned that it's not if, it's when. It's never a thing where you leave anything up to chance. Because I decided I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. I was going to do it. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen.
And then to all those people that say, well, you're just lucky, what do you have to say to that?
That's we talked about this a little bit earlier, so many people feel like, oh man, you're just lucky. You know what's crazy? I've even had my own kids have told me you're so lucky. And I'm like, guys, let me give you the lesson of your life. That was the last time they ever said that to me, okay? But this is the thing, man. I realize life is about choices. Choices. You will never, ever see or hear me say, I have no choice. Even if you have a gun to your head, if someone put a gun to your head and say, you got to do this or you die, that's still a choice. Still a choice. It's still you can have the wherewithal and the choice, which is the thing that God has given every human being on this earth, the ability to choose. And one thing I realize is that I am a result, good or bad, of every choice I make in my life, from the morning to night. And that little bit of information, it took me a while to really sink in because I had to make a lot of mistakes. And this is where I made a lot of mistakes. As a kid, and even as a young man, there was a lot I thought wasn't up to me. There were many, many times I felt like I was a victim of my circumstances. I felt like, oh man, the coach didn't pick me, and this, and this. And there were only few things where I felt, okay, I had a choice in this, but the rest of it I felt like wasn't up to me. And it left me drifting. You're a little bit like a boat without a sail. And if you end up in uncharted waters, man, it's a bad thing because you don't know where you are. You don't know where to go. You don't even know where to go to correct where you've been. You know what I mean? Like it's just your navigation is all messed up. The thing that changed in my life is when I learned how to set sails. And it's like, wait a minute, you can use the resistance. You can use the breeze that's going the opposite way. You can make it propel you forward. This was a secret that I learned, and I learned luck had nothing to do with anything. And it was empowering, man. It became my power. It became something I realized. And it started to get, as my life went on, it got more and more prominent as the years went on. And I'm just very, very thankful. I'm thankful, and I feel like the guy who wants to keep telling this, and they're not really preaching it, but just really telling it through my own experiences, that this is the way. Like, this can really work for every person, every man, woman, child out there, to start thinking about your choices, start thinking about it, and really examine your own heart and find out where you stand.
Oh, that's powerful, man. Like, when we were building this gym, I was telling Larry the whole time, I think we share that in common. I'm a strong believer myself. And there were so many doors. We were set on another location for this gym. We worked on it for 6 months on that location, right? And tirelessly trying to get this spot, and the doors just kept closing and closing and closing. We started getting frustrated, and I just stepped back and I said, look, man, there's a plan, and this is the reason. Then this door's shut doesn't mean the answer's no.
Yes.
It moved us to something better, yes. Right? And every time one of those doors closes, all of a sudden followed up by, look, this is why that closed, because look what just came out in front of us here. And to get to the spot, it took us a year to get to the spot to where we even found the spot we were going to open.
Yeah.
And then it took 11 months, much longer than we thought, to actually build this spot. And I mean, we hit obstacle after obstacle, but the end of it ended up being, it guided us down this road to where we made the changes that we needed to make before we even opened the doors, to where by the time it was done, we had this perfect gym that we would have never started with in the first place, because all these roadblocks ended up helping us get to where we needed to be.
Listen, man, that first of all, that is a beautiful, testimony to the power of just going, moving. And look, we don't get to call how things turn out. Now, when I say luck and an old thing and choice, that doesn't mean the result is going to be as you pictured it. It's actually going to be better than you pictured it. And I have to say this because you don't even know. I thought that playing football, I was going to be an all-pro. That was going to be what it was going to be. And let me say, it ended up the opposite. I was on 6 teams in 7 years because I knew I would never quit. That was my drive. That was my whole thing. I got to continue. Why are these doors closing? And again, I got married in 1989, and me and my wife and we had 2 kids at the time, and we were tooling around the NFL in suitcases, and I'm like, it's going to work. It's going to work. I'll never quit, because I had that scholarship mindset. And I just kept wondering, why are these doors closing? Why are these doors closing? But because I continued and because I kept going, it allowed for something better to come. You know what I mean? Even with the doors closed, if you keep moving, and this is the phrase I like to use, is that sometimes your greatest hopes are destroyed to prepare you for something better. I'm going to say it one more time. Sometimes your greatest hopes are destroyed to prepare you for something better. All that time you were being prepared.
Absolutely.
Think about it. The doors closing, all these gyms, this is it. But something better is always there. You always have to remember this. The thing that got me, when I retired from the NFL, because I was like, I got to give it up. I had no more strength for it. I felt like a failure. I was depressed. I was hurt. But one thing, when I was dating my wife, and this is back in '88, we met, and she had a little baby. She had a little 6 months old when we met, and we got married when she was 2. But we became the best of friends. Like, first and foremost, she was like my best friend, and it was like, and we just decided. I was like, I got to marry this woman before she gets away. You know what I mean? And I got married the day before my 21st birthday. But while we were dating, I remember we sat outside. We were in I'll never forget, a Wendy's restaurant, the Wendy burger spot. And we were sitting on the outside place in Kalamazoo in one of those outside tables. And I said, babe, what we're going to do, we're going to move. We're going to play in the NFL, and then we're going to move to LA, and we're going to make movies. Because with my art talent, I always saw myself using it in the movie business. I didn't know how. I love special effects. I love all that stuff, but I knew my art. It wasn't enough for me to see my art on the wall. I wanted to see my art moving. I wanted to see my art in the business. And I was not acting. Like, I had no clue about acting. The acting was nowhere on it. It was always about being a special effects artist, animator, doing all these kind of things. This is what I wanted to do, because that's to me is what I saw. Dude, when the NFL career ended, I was so depressed because I knew it was over. I went to a tryout with the 49ers, broke my finger. The guy threw the ball at me so hard, my finger was pointing the other way, and I said, something's wrong. Like, I didn't have it anymore. And when I came home, my wife looked at me, and she knew that dream was dead, because she saw it in my face. She said, and she was always very gentle, like that. She wasn't mean but she said, babe, maybe this isn't for you anymore. And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. I said, maybe, because I still wanted to hold on. I still wanted it, because it's addiction, you feel like. And she looked at me, she said, remember when you said We were going to move to LA and make movies. Let's go. I looked at her. I was like, are you serious? Really? Let's go. Let's go. All of a sudden, man, I'm getting choked up thinking about it, man. I was like, oh, I saw the path. Like, I did say that. She had to remind me because I was so down, I couldn't see the path. I couldn't see what it was. And she said, remember you said that. Let's go. We put our 2 kids in the car, loaded it up. I'll never forget. We had a Nissan Pathfinder at the time with tons of miles on it, loaded everything we had, took all our things, and came out to LA and didn't know a soul. Landed in Burbank, got one of those little extended stay hotels, didn't know anybody, didn't know what we were going to do, but we said, let's start over. And one thing I want to tell everybody out there, which is so precious and so beautiful, that no matter where you are in your life right now, start over. It's okay. It's okay. You can begin again. You know what I mean? If this day didn't go well, it's like God set the sun to go around so that we could say reset. It's a beautiful reset button. There's no reason why you have to live in failure or live in this. Now, once I got out here, I was really depressed again because it was like, oh man, now it was hard, bro. When I say hard, LA didn't even have a football team at the time. This was 1997. And I had even played on the Rams, and they left and went to St. Louis. And I was known now as not a football player. I was like, what am I? I'm an artist. So I would I had my portfolio in at Disney, at DreamWorks, at Hanna-Barbera, all this stuff. But the crazy thing is that hand-drawn animation was going out the window because Toy Story came out. And I didn't know anything about how to do computers. So I ended up, my first job in LA was sweeping floors. I'll never forget it. I swept the floor at a factory. It was in Northridge. And I'm up there like, oh my God. And they handed me a broom. And I said, oh man, this is the worst. Now I'm in a whole nother level of depression because where I was all excited about moving to LA, and I was like, this is going to be a new start. But the new start had a broom in it. And it was like handing me a broom. And they were like, sweep this floor. Ryan, Larry, I just was like, I thought I was going to faint. I thought I was going to fall out. I said, this could be my life for the rest of my life. And it hit me. But then all of a sudden there was a magical thing. And this is what happened. I want to say this. Once I got to work, because see, all the resistance, everything happened in resisting the work. It was all in sitting around thinking about it instead of doing it, right? I started sweeping. And all of a sudden, energy started coming. And a thought came to me. And I said, what if someone gave you $1 million to sweep this floor? How would you sweep it? So it was a game that I played with myself. I was alone. I was all by myself in a giant factory. But it was a game that I said, okay, I'll sweep this floor, and at the end of the day, I'm going to get $1 million. And so I was like, but how would I do it? So I was getting in the corners. I was making sure everything was spotless. And all of a sudden, the day went like that. Like, what could have been like a long slog of, oh, my God, was like, oh, the day was over. Okay, and I will never forget the place I got. It was a place called Labor Ready is where I got the job. And they pay you at the end of the day. Like, it was that kind of place. And I went back, and I've been resisting work for a long time, thinking I'm a football player. I can't do that. But, man, picking up that broom was so humbling, and it hurt so much. And I went back to get my money, and they gave me, it was $8 an hour. That was at the time. And they gave me, I worked my 8 hours, $64 they gave me. I came and went back. I took the $64, I took $20, put it in the gas tank. I'll never forget this, man. And I literally gave my wife the rest of the money because they took taxes out. So I ended up with $48. I put 20 in the gas tank. I gave 20 to my wife, and I had $8 in my pocket. And I was like, I'll never be broke again. That changed my life forever. I was like, I put money in my hand. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do. It was a test. It was a test. Crush this ego and do what you have to do to provide for your family and stop the ego stuff and just do it. Because this is the thing. Nobody cared. Nobody knew I was a football player. Nobody was all like, oh, that's Jerry Cruz sweeping the floor. Nobody cares. Everybody think about what they got to do. Everybody's hustling on their thing. Dude, I was doing everything. I was filing papers in Veterans Administration. I was bouncing. I was doing all this thing. And what happened is, and I know the story. I'm trying to truncate because there's so much going on. But as I was bouncing, another guy came through. He said, Terry, there's an audition for this new show. And the show was called Battle Dome. And what it was like a version of American Gladiators on steroids, right? It was crazy, right? It was no MMA at the time. Like, people didn't even hear about MMA. Like, mixed martial arts was still something in Brazil, you know? But the way we did it, it was like we took on 3 contestants, and people were fighting and the whole thing, and people were sending people to the hospital. It was nuts. But I auditioned for this show, and I got it. So I'm on Battle Dome.
I remember this.
Wait,
all my buddies
remember?
are on there. Because that was Christian Boving.
Yes,
on
Christian
there.
Boving, Michael Hearn.
Yeah,
all those guys, dude. We were on this show. This is the first thing I ever did. Okay? And I'm like, and Michael Hearn, I'll never forget, man, Mike was a specimen. Like, I was like, oh my God, he looked like real Superman. You know, he still does, by the way. It was just nuts. Michael Hearn is an OG level fitness. And I remember he come in with his oatmeal and his peanut butter and a little bit. I'm like, oh, I'm learning how to eat by watching him. I was like, oh, because I was like, okay, wow, what are you doing? He's like, I got my protein mix in here. His diet was flawless. But I remember just being on that show, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, remember, your greatest hopes are destroyed to prepare you for something better. And this was better. From sweeping to a show, and I did not know acting was my gift until I did it. You don't know what your true talents are. I'm going to tell you this, and it's another thing I want to say. You don't know how smart you are. You don't know how strong you are. You don't know how rich you are until you push yourself to need those things. To know how rich you are, you have to have a dream that needs the money. To know how strong you are, you have to have the weight to understand, well, wait a minute, I can do this. You have to do it. You know, to know how smart you are, you have to put your wits to the test. You got to have an ability, have an idea or a mindset you actually put out in the world. And all of a sudden, you could go farther than you ever did. I'm gonna break this down too. I'll never forget. I'm playing this warrior, T-Money, on the show, right? Yeah. And there was these doors that would open up, and the warriors would show, they would show themselves. I didn't know what I was doing, man. I felt like I was going to throw up every show. Here I was. I'm like, I'm not an actor. There was like imposter syndrome. You're like, dude, what are you doing here? You never acted in your life. You don't know what. But all of a sudden, I was like, what do you want to do? Go back sweep floors? You want to go back to security? You want to go back filing papers? Hey, I said, I realized there's no way back. The only way back is through. The only way out is through this thing. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget, I felt like I was going to die every show. And I made it through. Like, the doors were open. But remember, it's just like sweeping. It's like, once the work started, I could finish it. Like, not only did I finish it, I was like, oh, we're done? We got the show in? You know what I mean? And I started to realize everything is like that. The problem comes in resistance. You know, it's the indecision. It's where all the pain is. The minute you make a decision, the minute you make a choice, you're halfway there. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I decided I was going to get this thing going, and you put it on his feet. I told you downstairs, the thing I heard that was amazing, the difference between those that do and those that don't is those that do, and those that don't. I love this. I love that saying because I realize you have to do. You just have to do that. Now, that doesn't mean do way above or whatever. That's baby steps. Do a little. Start. And all of a sudden it grows. Man, let me tell you, that Battle Dome turned into, I mean, I get been choked up thinking about it, man, but all the way to now, the fact that I have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame blows my mind. That was not in the cards. That is the something better. You know what I mean? Because I never stopped. And I have to give props to my wife who always believed in me, man, when I didn't believe in myself. You know, we talked a little bit downstairs about self-talk, how you talk about yourself. And I was one of those guys that would be really, really hard on myself. I would constantly put myself down, constantly crush my own confidence. You know what I mean? One setback, and all of a sudden, that's the way I am. You know what I mean? But everything is learnable. And this is the trick I want to say. The trick that a lot of people pull on everyone is saying, well, you either have it or you don't. But that's not true. That's not. Everything is learnable. Everything is a skill. Everything. From a language to an ability. If I was in China and I decided I was going to learn Chinese and I went there and boom, and I stayed, I would know Chinese. That's just the way it is. But someone to tell you it's impossible for you to learn Chinese is ridiculous. That works with everything. Everything. And once that mindset hit me, because the thing we're battling is not people. You're battling mindsets. You know, that's why I learned not to fight with people. You're what you're fighting with, and the thing you don't like is probably a mindset that you're resisting. You know what I mean? And another thing that helps me in so many ways is that the phrase that I used to say, the phrase that I keep around me that helps me deal with everything in my life is that people are doing the best they can with the wisdom they have. Now that helps because it helps me to forgive myself. It helps me to forgive other people. Because even if you're offended, even if someone wrongs you, even if, I look at my father. I look at what my father did to my mother, but he wasn't wise. He was doing the best he could, but he just wasn't wise at all. He was reacting just off some base element. You know what I mean? But that's the way I look. Anything that people, I learned to do that, to phrase that with myself, like, I look back and I go, man, I did some really dumb things. I did some really stupid stuff. I even offended my wife, or why did I say that? I wasn't wise. But the wiser you get, all of a sudden you can look back and go, oh, you know, and now that's why the big thing for me is right along with gaining strength, you have to gain wisdom. First and foremost. The wiser you get, the better everything you get. And I want to straighten this out. Wisdom is way different than knowledge. It's different than smart. You got smart serial killers. Yeah. You understand what I mean? There's a lot of smart people that are trying to steal your money. There's a lot of smart people that know how to run game on everybody. Smart is not what I'm talking about. But you'll never find a wise serial killer. You know what I mean? You'll never see a wise crook. You'll never have a wise, you know, person that's tries to abuse you. There's not a wise abuser. See what I mean? Wisdom comes with all the benefits, you know? And so that's my struggle. My fight now is to get wiser and wiser every day. Just a little bit more wisdom and how to deal. there are people who are mad at me about things I said or done or whatever, and I can just chalk it up to the fact that I wasn't wise enough at the time. You know what I mean? And that helps me forgive myself. Right. You know, it helps to forgive. And then when you forgive yourself, you can forgive other people. I'm sorry, I'm going all day, man.
No, it's an amazing story, man. So, like, when you walk into a room, I mean, the first thing I thought is, that's a big dude. But, I mean, your personality is bigger than your stature, right? I mean, it's so amazing because there's a certain level of charisma that you have, right? That it's just drawn to. I see you stopped. Everybody want to take a picture in the gym. You stopped to take a picture, like. And after doing this and being a superstar this long, like, that part, you could tell that you still are. You got that humbleness to you, that you're willing to stop, talk to the fans. I mean, it's pretty unique to see, man. I haven't met a lot of celebrities with your status that still have this kind of mindset.
Well, you know, I look at this place as an honorable place. I'm an ambassador. You know what I mean? I represent a greater kingdom. You know, when you representing something, it ain't how good you are. You know what I mean? It's like, these ain't even my people, them God's people. You know what I mean? And when I look at people, they're like, hey, these people are children of God. And if I don't treat them correctly, hey, man, you get fired. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. It's not my right to be like, talking to people or down to people. Listen, one thing I learned, and it's a quick saying, but I love this stuff. Listen up, never listen down. Listen up, don't listen down. People are telling you, and they're showing you who they are. And it's a different way to hear people. I've seen people that are angry and yelling and whatever, and you see that they're just hurt. My wife, I used to be a very violent dude, man. I used to fight, and my wife would be like, you know, I remember yelling at her. And there was times she'd be like, I saw you as a lion with a thorn in his paw. And that blew my mind. That perspective. So I saw the world a little bit differently. And, you know, when you treat people with kindness and you treat people with respect, it's something that it's first of all, it is a skill, but it's also something that comes back to you. You know what I mean? I want kindness. I want respect. You know what I mean? You only get back what you give. You know, that's another thing. I realized just giving what you give, you get back 10 times up. And I have been given so much honor and respect. Like, to be able to go into any country in the world and people go, Mr. Cruz, dude, it's humbling. You know what I mean? I'm in Japan and they're going, Mr. Cruz. I'm in Dubai and they're like, Terry Crews. I'm in South Africa and they're like, and they put me in a place of honor. The least I can do is honor them right back. You know what I mean? By giving it is what you get back. And now, this is another thing. The fact is, I've been in this business a long time. Also, I've been in sports and entertainment. So I've seen the tops on all these levels. The top superstar athlete all the way to the top superstar actor. And I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't. I've seen cats be on top and I've seen cats fall. And I mean, not only fall, but take everything down around them with it. I think a lot of people are experiencing this right now when they see the fall of a lot of great people that they loved for years and thought, he won years ago. And we always call winners way too early. You know what I mean? First of all, everybody loves a young winner. You know, 18, rocking it out. Oh, it's wonderful. Boom, 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 boom. But what we really need to be looking at is that guy in his 80s who has a beautiful life, beautiful family, just a beautiful legacy, testimony, business. That, to me, is real success. Because it's about longevity. The most important ability you can have is endurance. You know what I mean? Like, everybody can get that quick one shot, bow, whoa, 1 rep max, so to speak. But longevity is about endurance. How strong are you later? What got you to be alive? Because I was telling Larry downstairs, it's like, what good is being fit or being in fitness and not being fit? You know what I mean? Like, it's good to look great for a year and then literally feel like you're in hell for the rest of your life. That's where I'm at. I always wanted to continue and feel good along with being good. So it's spiritual, it's physical, and it's mental.
You have a tremendous level of balance between your health, work, and your marriage. You're married 35 years.
5 years. And let me tell you, we went through everything, man. First of all, we've lost homes. We've lost children. It's wild. My wife has been through 3 miscarriages. I mean, we lost our house. And that was one of the hardest things, because I had already had some success. And it was funny because it was right after Battle Dome. And then they canceled Battle. We bought a house. We were all doing our thing. And then all of a sudden the show got canceled. And then there was a strike in the commercial department. And all of a sudden I had no money. And we lost our house. And it's wild talking to my kids. And I was like, oh, man, we got to move. But we don't know where we're going to go. My credit's shot. We're begging. I'm looking at places with holes in the walls. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm back down again. You know what I mean? When I say ups and downs, it's a lot of people feel like it was just all great. Dude, when my wife had a miscarriage, man, and we're sitting here like, it's the darkest day. I can't even imagine. It's one of those things where you see no light. And you're just like, it's just going to get better. And I'm getting choked up thinking. I'm not serious, man. It's like, you see the one that you love the most, and she's in the biggest pain, and you know that you just lost a little one, and you're like, I don't know if and to go through it more than once, but it does get better. Because after every time we had another child, and it's your greatest hopes are destroyed to prepare you for something better. Better is always coming. And you have to know that. And one thing I used to tell myself, and I tell this now. I'll tell you this now, all day. The fact is, the best thing that can happen to me has not happened to me yet. Even now. I can't look back as if those days were the better days. My best is still yet to come. At 56 years old, you have not seen what Terry Crews is going to do. You've not seen the best of what I'm about to do. Perfection is impossible, but I can do the best I can do every day. You know what I mean? And it's a real eye opener, and it keeps me hopeful. It keeps me like, oh man, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know how to. Acting might be just like one another chapter. You know what I mean? That's why I started hosting. It was weird. Listen, man, you got to understand this. At high school, I told you how my mother was religious. I was a break dancer, doing the whole thing. I used all my movies, right? So I was break dancing as a kid, and I'm like, I'm going to do this talent show. I got to do this talent show. And my mother was like, nope. I said, but Mom, come on, I got to do this talent show. You know I can do it. And she used to let me dance at the house. Like, look. She was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, can I do it in the show? She's like, no, you're not going out there shaking your button. And I was like, man. And I was so frustrated. I said, can I host it? Can I host the talent show? And she went, you got me there. Dude, I hosted my high school talent show. And now I host the biggest talent show in the world. I did not see that coming. It's my destiny. I didn't know it was my destiny while it was happening. So everything in your life is used to bless you. Everything. I learned to love the obstacles because it makes you better. It makes you who you are. You know what I mean? And it's hard to say because sometimes when you're going through it, you're like, But I have to say this, man, and I continue to keep these things. I keep these tapes playing. Another thing I had to do, and I'll be honest with you, I had to adjust my music because there was a lot of music that were telling me things that I didn't want to hear, even though I liked it. You know what I mean? It's like, a lot of songs about cheating. A lot of songs about I'm a nigga here and I'm this, I'm no good, I'm this and this. And I realized, I was telling myself this stuff. And so I started to reframe it. I think everything should be allowed, everything, but you get to choose. You have to choose. I return, I don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? I don't want to put that in me. It's funny. Me and my wife would go places. I'm like, I'm dancing with my wife to this song. You know what I mean? I said, we had to reframe it. I had to rechange it. That's okay. We're going to sit there and they play something we like. We'll be good. Nothing wrong with the music, but you just get wiser. Nothing wrong with it. But as you get wiser, you realize, I choose to go another direction.
That's pretty amazing. My mom always told me growing up, your brain only knows what your eyes let it see. Right? So I've always been very careful of what I allow, in. Because it can
You mind
change.
if I take that now?
Oh, yeah. It's all,
I love these things. See, quick sayings are good. Are the livelihood of Terry Crews. I'm trying to tell you because it's something I can remember. And these little bases, that is awesome, man.
Yeah, so there's certain movies, certain things I choose to just not watch. I said, look, there's enough violence in the world already. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see this. I don't need to see that. And it's something I've lived by, which I think has kept me in a good headspace, This far into life, I can say that, there's certain things I've never allowed into my life because then it manifests from seeing it into can grow. That's how the addiction grows, right?
Yeah.
So this is the first introduction. That's the gateway into things getting further and further and further out of control. And so if you just don't allow it to be a part of your life, then, if you've never been exposed to it, then you don't know it's there and it can't feed. It can't feed that addiction.
Yeah. Ryan, that's how I pick my roles. And again, first of all, I love violent movies. I love horror movies. I love action movies. I love comedies. I love all of entertainment. But my test is, what does it say? What is it saying? And this is how I learned. This is one of the great ways I learned. I was an extra on training day. Early in those days, right around the Battle Dome stuff, I literally had a chance to watch Denzel. I was invited onto the set down in the jungle, in the hood, to watch Denzel and Training Day and that famous, King Kong Ain't Got Nothing on Me scene, with the gang members and the whole thing. And the director actually said, "You want to be in this movie?" And I'm standing there watching. He said, "Man, look, I want you to stand here. Denzel's going to go off. I want you to stand right here and I want you to mean mug him the whole time." And I ended up in the movie standing there looking at Denzel during his speech, But one thing I noticed in between setups is he had a script that was sitting on that car, the OG car that he had in the movie. And on the script, he had written, "The wages of sin is death." And because the thing is, the studio wanted to make sequels. They wanted Training Day 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? And he said, "I won't do this movie unless you kill me." Because you're sending the message. All art has a message. There's no such thing as an art piece that doesn't have a message. And the message is, wait a minute, what is this movie saying? And Denzel was like, if you let me live, what you're saying is the wages of sin is not death. And he said, I I can't do it. But by them killing him in the end, because it was rewritten, people don't know that they had him living at the end, but at the end they had the mob show up and shoot him and kill him, and he said that was the way I could be as bad as I wanted to be, all in that movie. But people would never, ever, ever think they could do things like this and get away with it. And that's me. Like, to me, I've done movies where I played a bad guy or whatever and this and that, but if you get away with it, what message is it? There's so many. After I did White Chicks, which I love, there were so many movies that people offered me where I'm just running around sleeping with girls and doing it, and I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm about, because they thought I was just some dude trying to be a playboy and, oh yeah, he gets to do. I'm like, no. I said, no. And I'll be telling you, even now, even with ads, advertising and the whole thing, I will never do ads for alcohol or gambling. Now, not that they're illegal or whatever, or anybody who does them or partakes in them is a problem. I just know, for me, that's just something I choose not to represent, because I don't do either one. I don't do it. I don't drink and I don't gamble. So why would I go out and tell people to go drink and gamble? So it's that simple. It's not moral or whatever. It's just like, yo, what am I about? Who am I? And now Old Spice, however, that's different. I do take a lovely shower.
I put the Old Spice on today because I knew you were coming. I said, I better put on the Old Spice.
And I have no problem with advertising. I've been very, very successful in the advertising business. You know what I mean? I've done Super Bowl Toyota commercials, worked with Nike, again, Old Spice, all this stuff. And I've been proud to represent a lot of different products. But if I don't use it, if I don't believe in it, it ain't gonna work. Not gonna work. People know and people get it. So with my movie career, it's the same way. And I love the movie Killer's Game, the whole thing. I play this guy, but hey, I'm a bad guy, but I get hit by a car. And the result, in the end, it was tongue in cheek and fun and comedy. But my thing is, I love what entertainment does. You know what I mean? It's literally these beautiful allegories and stories and things that you can get vicariously. You know what I mean? Do the Right Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time, because it just really talked about human relationships, like, whoa, the races and how people see each other. And it's like, man, you just can't stop thinking after you watch that movie. That's to me, I like to go into movies and do movies where life is a little bit different when you come out of watching it. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful life, man.
So how you balance it? You got to have the busiest schedule, man.
Yeah, I do.
You got America's Got Talent. You got all these movies, these commercials. Like, what's that look like, man? And you got how many kids? You said
5.
5 kids.
5 kids, married 35 years. Yeah. A grandbaby. We got a granddaughter. She's 14. But this is the thing about balance, and the key for me is not really balance. The key is focus. Focus. What happens is you don't try to do everything at once. If you try to I have 5 things to do today. If I try to do them all at once, it's a mess. In fact, you do them all bad. But while I'm doing this podcast, I focus just on this podcast. I turn my phone off. There's nothing else in the world going on right now but this podcast, period. I got tons of stuff to do when it's over. But the focus is here. The focus is now. And multitasking is a myth. You can't do 17 things at once.
You tell it to my girlfriend, man. She's trying to watch a movie. She's on. I said, "Did you even see that?"
Yeah, no. You got a bad experience both ways. You know what I mean? But that's been the thing. And I found, this is another thing, I found that I could do way more when I focus on one thing at a time. And then I shut it off. Mind you, I even gave you guys the time when it's over.
Yeah.
I said, this is hard out. The phrase I love is hard outs. All of a sudden, I'm done. When the workout's done, finished. Now I'm moving on to something else. Focus, focus, focus. And this is a wonderful thing. And I'm going to give you a key, man. This is the key. Focus and interest create energy. If you're ever tired, if you're ever like, well, the more you focus and the more you become interested, it creates energy. Today, you taught me something that changed my life in regard to the bench press that made me focus. And then the interest was all in about changing the angle of my elbows and the pat, it created energy. I haven't done what I did today in this bench press in years. You know what I mean? It's like the energy came with the focus and interest, and all of a sudden, boom, the power comes. Dude, this works for everything. Everything. People, you think, oh man, you get a math problem, and you're like, well, I don't understand. The more you focus on it, the more energy you put into it, the more interest you put into it, the more you focus on it, all of a sudden you get the power to solve it. And it comes. You guys trying to put the gym together, focus, interest. You get the energy to wake up in the morning and put this thing together. You know, you created something special here, you know, and I love that, man. And I am a big guy about just telling the secrets. You know what I mean? It's not a secret, you know?
I feel inspired today. This got me all fired up. I'm like, man, what am I going to do now? We got to do more, Larry.
Most definitely. I wish I had a little Terry Crews on my shoulder. Just tell me all the answers.
That's what I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell little Terry. With you press a button and just have little Terry Crews isms. You know what I mean?
Yeah, little one-liners. I like that.
My wife is like, I'm tired of little Terry Crews. Okay, I heard enough of that.
I think you should write a book, man.
Oh, I have. I have 2 books.
And then you can illustrate your own books then with the artwork too.
Listen, that's coming. But I did do a book called Manhood. I came out with about the battle with pornography addiction that I had years ago. And Manhood changed everything. You know what I mean? You know, like, again, I'm talking about habits, good ones, bad ones. Dude, I had a bad habit, and it was pornography. You know, I got hooked when I was young. Nobody ever, pornography, yeah, you know, if you're over 18, it should be fine for everybody. But who in the world ever discovers pornography at 18? You're always a kid. It's always something that snuck to you. It's always something that, whoa. Man, I was like 9 years old, and I was like, oh my God, my life changed. I was at my uncle's house, opened up a chest, and it was full of porn. I didn't even know what sex was. You know what I mean? I was like, what? But these are so beautiful. Oh my God. And being in a traumatic household, dude, it was like drugs. I could forget where I was. Time and space stopped. It was like, you could be calling my name and I wouldn't hear it. And you know, this is another thing too. I want to tell some people they don't know, is that I've always had a hearing issue. So I wear hearing aids. Okay. And what I found, and this is why, because I tried to you know, like tough it out, the whole thing, but people thought I was ignoring them. You know, they call my name and I'm focused. If I'm not looking at you, I can't hear you. And what's really weird, and this is why I know it's more than hearing, it's more of my brain. I don't hear my alarm until I look at it. Isn't that, to me, it'll be right by my bed and my wife will say, the alarm is going off, and then I turn and look, and all of a sudden I hear it. This is deeper. And again, it's some sort of thing that's mental or in my brain or the way it works. We're deeper than you could ever realize. But I went to the doctor and they found out that there were certain decibels I couldn't hear. Like when it's too high, I don't hear it, but I can hear low tones. Like when my grandbaby speaks, it's really hard for me to hear her. And that's funny because I was like, no, I don't have a hearing problem. And she said, you read lips. You read lips. I was like, come on, dude. She said, I would never forget, she started talking, and I was like, I can hear you just fine. And then she started talking like this, and I was like, what are you saying? It started like, but but when she left her hand down, I could understand because I could see her lips. Now imagine during the pandemic when everybody was wearing masks. Bruh, I'll be at the grocery store. What? And they're like, dude, it was crazy. And I said, okay, I'm wearing my hearing aids. Actually, I didn't bring them today because I wear them when I'm lifting. But the thing is that I knew, let me do something about this issue. You know what I mean? It's like glasses, no stigma to it. But it also helped me become a better actor because I have to look at emotions. I look at people's faces and I'm watching and I'll become a mimic and I would mime faces and look and I knew what was funny about how people were reacting and you could tell little subtle things. It's just one thing I know, that the thing that was meant to take you out can also help you. It can also be a superpower. A friend of mine is Stevie Wonder. And Stevie sees sound. He actually plays, and it's a visual to him. You know what I mean? And it's wild because his hearing is so attuned where you're weaker in one spot, you're stronger in another. You know what I mean? So I always looked at that like, okay, that's going to be a power for me. I'm going to change this from a weakness into a power. And let's reframe this whole thing.
Wow, it's amazing.
Well, downstairs, you told me something very powerful that you learned while you were in rehab.
Yes.
You know, I asked Terry, what's one thing you can take away from rehab? Something that really stuck with you that you can apply every day.
Well, I went to rehab for pornography addiction. And my wife and I, we separated after year 20. Okay, we got 35 years in now, but in year 20, it was over. And, I basically hadn't been honest about a whole lot of things in my life. And my wife called me on it. And because of this pornography addiction and the whole thing, it got to a point where I actually cheated on her. And I was at a massage parlor. And I thought it was something I would never do. I'm like, how did I end up here? And I vowed I would never tell anybody. Like, it was done. It was like, And this was in year 10 of our marriage, right? I went 10 more years without telling anybody nothing. I was going to keep that secret, but I still had this porn habit. And year 20, she basically put me on blast and said, what is it I don't know about you? And I just got tired of lying. The phrase I like to say is, it used to be like, why don't you believe me? But the question should have been, why am I lying? Two different things, but the results, it sounds the same, but boy, the results are different. So I went to rehab, and I started to learn about myself, started to learn what was making me tick, started to learn what was happening. And I also learned with that pornography use, you start to beat yourself down. You start to feel like, I'm no good. Because there are things that you don't like. People are people. People are meant to be loved. They're not meant to be used. You know what I mean? And it was something I was hiding. It was something I was lying about. And I felt bad about myself. So I would always talk bad about myself in my head. Like, you dummy, you idiot, you this, and you should be doing better. You should. They say you should never should all over yourself. That's a phrase that's been said. You know what I mean? But the thing that broke this in rehab for me is that they told me it was my self-talk. Always, always, always talk good about yourself. Always talk positive about yourself. Always tell yourself you can do it. Always be that encourager. And I was like, but that doesn't make sense. You're messing up. You're upping up. The breakthrough was, I have a picture of myself at 6 years old. And I looked at that picture of that kid. And I remember I was missing one tooth and the whole thing. Is that kid a bad kid? No. He's 6. He said, at no time ever in your life did you ever stop being that little boy. Ever. That little boy is you. Hey, man, it changed everything. It changed the way I saw everything. And I said, would I ever call him an idiot? Would I ever call this little boy stupid? Never. Never. But then why would I ever call myself that? Why would I talk to myself? If this little boy stumbled on a crate of pornography, you'd be like, man, put that down. That's not good for you. Come on. No biggie. Come on, let's go outside and play. You see how, instead, oh man, no, it was like, yo, if this little kid fell down, would you say, man, you too dumb to fall, you dummy, you would say, hey man, come on, get up. If this little kid made a mistake or he didn't know something, you'd be like, listen, let me tell you. I mean, just, no, it's okay. Let me tell you, you made a mistake. It's okay. Bruh. Oh my goodness. You talking about from rehab, I was like, I've been talking to myself the wrong way my whole life. My whole life. And let me tell you, it's something you don't even get in church, because in church, sometimes you learn to beat yourself down more. And that was the big thing. It was like, yeah, you're bad and you always going to be bad. No, I'm a sinner saved by grace. But God doesn't talk to you like that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't talk to my kids like that. And I realized, man, that was the most powerful thing, because I'm still that little boy. And I always encourage myself. I wake up in the morning, you can do this. You about to go work out. You're about to do this. Look at this. Isn't it amazing? Look at your life, man. Look what we get to do today. You are living in a theme park. You know what I mean? We're about to go on the ride. You ready? You talk to yourself this way. And all of a sudden the day becomes fun. The day is of joy. You go to sleep like, oh man, you cuddle up like a little 6-year-old. You know what I mean? Nothing wrong with that, man. First of all, the problem is being childish. But nothing wrong with being childlike. Two different things. Being childlike is good. Childish is bad. You know? Hey, I remember as a kid having a tantrum because I didn't get my way. And somebody just waiting it out. Are you done? Because the only way you're going to be able to get this thing is if you behave. And you have to learn your little lessons. You know what I mean? But as a 6-year-old, you get it. And you're not mad at the 6-year-old. You understand? He's 6. But see, we as adults, we get adultified and we think we should already know. You should already know this. You should already know that. But you don't. Remember, wisdom is coming. And it's okay because you don't know. It's all right to not know. Let's not know together. All right? How about that? Again, you taught me something today to change my life forever. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know this. And I'm 56 years old. I've been working out for 40 years and didn't know this. If you're not open to it,
I feel like I just learned a lot of wisdom today. This was one of the best experiences. Forget podcasts. This is one of the best experiences I've ever had. I learned a lot from this today, man. I'm super inspired.
Thank you, man.
And your story is absolutely amazing.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm telling you, man.
Thank you so much for coming out here, you know. And I'll end it on this. Like, right before this pod, Terry and I did a workout collaboration for my YouTube. And, you know, first thing he says when he walks in is, you know, I'm the student today. And I found that so admirable. You're 56 years old, training for 40 years, right? And you're a very successful man in every aspect from what I could see. And you still possess that trait about you that's very humble, and you're always willing to learn. And, you know, I want to remain that way, you know, as I grow older. You know, I want to remain humble and a student, and I don't ever want to be the person that thinks he knows everything, you know. And, you know, there's so much about you that makes you such a great role model.
Well, I feel the same way about you, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. Listen, Larry, we clicked as soon as we met. I had seen you on videos and the whole thing, and I was like, oh my God. like, hey, man, Superman is here. You know what I mean? But to meet you in person, dude, I couldn't be more impressed, man. It's one of the best things ever. I feel like you're my little brother in a lot of ways. I mean, it's wild because you're older. I got kids older than you, which is really weird. You know what I mean? But again, man, I just feel like, wow, there's a kinship here, man. And same thing here. I meet you, Ryan, and I'm like, wow, man, this is my tribe. You know, we all know we want to be strong. We just want to be better, man. I told you this downstairs. I realized the best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself. And where I got it wrong was try to make the most of them. I want to make the most of this, make the most of this system over here, make the most of that. No. The best thing you can do is to make the most of yourself. Because if you get better, your whole world gets better. Imagine if everyone in this room just got better, the world would be better. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about fitness. This is what I love about the gym. Because it's all about improvement. That's all it's about. Let's get better just a little bit. And it helps everything.
Terry Crews for president. I'm putting him on the ballot.
Right now, bro.
Oh, man. Oh, I don't know about do politics, though. But, you don't know. God might move me there and might say, oh, wow, who knows? I'm not going to rule that out, but right now, I like where I'm at right now.
Well, you're getting my vote if you ever decide to do that. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Thanks again for coming on the pod. And, guys, we will see you very soon on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. And that's it. Man. Yes, sir.